Welcome everyone and everybody. This is Luxeley behind the microphone wearing House Stark pajamas. Winter is coming. And so is Mercenary Mode, coming for BGs and Ashran, aka Trasharan. I'm going to talk about the good, the really not so bad, and the ugly about this new proposed PvP feature, Mercenary Mode. It's coming in patch 6 point something or another. Now, I've always found that the best way to comprehend a new feature is simply by breaking down the word. So you break it down into its most primal essence. So, mercenary, the translation is a person, or typically a woman, who engages in sexual activity for... No, that's the wrong definition. Sorry about that, folks. Daniel Webster, who plays a druid in World of Warcraft, defines mercenary as the following: a person primarily concerned with making money at the expense of ethics. Oh, the irony. I'm going to talk about the good stuff first. Incidentally, I queued for a random BG right before I took the flight path from the Isle of Quel'Danas to Booty Bay. This is arguably the longest flight path in the game. Let's see what happens first. Does the BG queue hit, or do I land in Booty Bay in Goblin Land? Leave it in the comments. Place your bets. Let me know your thoughts. Since the beginning of Wrath of the Lich King, I've enjoyed roughly about 20-second queues for the ally to get into a BG. Yeah, that's a little bit spoiled because the Horde have always been significantly longer. Patch 6.1, things changed a little bit. That average queue time went from about 20 seconds to 2 minutes. 2 minutes still being acceptable. And the interesting thing is, that rise in the queue time kind of coincides with that huge ban that Blizzard put out of 100,000 players. Patch 6.2, the queue times went from roughly 2 minutes to 20 minutes, maybe more or less 15 minutes, but that's still, no matter how you slice it, downright unacceptable. At the very least, Mercenary Mode can be a short-term solution to this whole queue problem. Whether or not it's a long-term solution remains to be seen, but I truly applaud the fact that Blizzard is taking action and doing something about the problems with the BG queues in both random BGs and Ashran. To be 100% honest with you guys, I absolutely despise these 15 to 20 minute queues. Sure, I get a chance to catch up on my reading and such, but the fact is, I'm not playing World of Warcraft, so I can sit there and catch up on my reading. Did you guys ever go to a crowded movie theater on a Friday night at the opening of like a big blockbuster film? I'm sure you have. And you wait 20 minutes in line at the concession stand, because that's what Luxley needs. Popcorn. Popcorn is like a necessity for me to exist, so I have to wait in line for popcorn. So I allow an extra 20 minutes to do that, whether it's crowded or it's not. And in front of you, there's this young couple, this young, probably on their second or third date, lovey-dovey couple. And when they step up to the register, after you've been sitting there behind them or standing there behind him for like 20 minutes, they get up to the register. Guy says, "Can I help you?" Because that's what his job is. He says, "Can I help you?" The guy looks at his girlfriend and he says, "Honey, what do you want?" And she looks at him and says, "Oh, I don't know, baby. What do you want?" And he looks at her and says, "Honey, I want whatever you want. Whatever you want, I'll get." And she looks at him and she says, "Well, baby, I don't know what I want just yet. I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I'm waiting here 20 minutes online, and you guys don't know what you want? Couldn't you take like 60 seconds and look at the menu and look and figure out what you want? Yes, this is a very crude analogy, but it's the same exact kind of thing that happens when you're sitting around waiting 20 minutes in a queue for a random BG, and Blizzard says, "Here, randomly, Strand of the Ancients, a BG that should be deleted. Everybody hates it, but yet it's still there. Here you go. It's like the Ashran of random BGs. Here, Strand of the Ancients. And if you're Alliance, you can't block it, because if you block it, you're going to have to take AV or IOC, and that means your queue times are going to double. So you have no choice. Or what happens is you lose, and I mean badly lose, that 1 out of 5 BGs that the Horde actually win. You face a Horde pre-made, and you're with all new level 100s, and you get your ass kicked, and it's not even close. That's frustrating. Just like standing behind that couple for 20 minutes, and they don't know what they want, and you gotta wait another 20 minutes. I've been very critical of WoW and Blizzard. The point is, I'm about fairness, and if I do dislike something or I'm critical about something, I'm going to back it with stats. I'm going to back it with experience. I'm going to back it with facts. I'm not going to just, oh, this sucks. This is horrible. This is the worst thing ever. No, I'm not like that. I'll give you reasons why. I'll give you, in a way, a proposal to fix it sometimes. So I'm not just about bashing things. I tend to be fair. And in all fairness, I have to say, this is a great move. I applaud Blizzard for A, taking action expeditiously and decisively, and B, being attentive to something that's needed in PvP right now. In RPGs and Arena, both of which happen to be instant queues, you already face the same faction every now and again, probably close to about 50% of the time. Mercenary Mode is going to be a little bit different. Because if you queue as a mercenary on the Horde side, you will turn into that Horde race. So if you're a gnome, you get to be big. Maybe you become a Tauren. How cool is that? Or if you're a human, you might turn around and end up being undead. Plus, you get the racials of the Horde race that you turn into. So you appear to yourself as a Horde race. The other players, the Horde, and the Alliance see you as the Horde race. There is one small problem with this, though. What are you going to do about the human racial? The human racial means the, oh, get out of bad things kind of trinket that you have. That's the whole problem with this, trust me. Every man for himself. How are you going to compensate for that? Because the player who's ally, and he queues for Horde as a mercenary, he doesn't have a trinket. So what are you going to do? I think if you give him that human racial, that's a really bad thing. Something needs to be done. Blizzard has addressed this. They don't know how to handle this one particular racial. And this is, trust me, this is what the problem is. It's every man for himself. Now, first, when I heard some mumblings about this mercenary mode coming into the game, I didn't think they had the technology. You have to understand, the Blizzard game engine, or should I say the World of Warcraft game engine, is roughly about 12 years old. It goes back to the alpha, not launch. 12 years old. In dog years, that's a lot of years. The point is, I didn't think the technology existed. So even if they wanted to do something like this, I didn't think they could. But I was wrong. Perfect example. Wrath of the Lich King dungeon, the culling of Stratholme. You turn into an alliance race. So if you queue as Horde, you become alliance. They have the technology where you can see yourself as a different race and everybody else sees you as a different race. It's a technology that works pretty damn smooth. Mercenary Mode is going to keep the RP aspect intact, potentially fix the whole issue with the queues, and it's going to add a new dimension to the game. Call it a PvP feature. There's been a lack of them. This is one of them. Might not be what we wanted, but it is something that we do need. Granted, and I just have to say this, I don't believe for a second that Blizzard would do something this expeditiously and decisively if it wasn't affecting queues of Ashran. If this was just affecting the regular random BGs, I don't think that they would address this until the next X-Pack. But they are insistent at force-feeding Ashran to people. I can understand why they're doing this, because the problem with Ashran, at least at the beginning of 6.2, when people were trying to gear up, because Ashran was clearly the best way to do that. And I do have to say, Ashran did take one step up, but 2 steps back. I think they improved the gameplay and the structure of it, but the 2-hour-long queues were just ridiculous. I mean, you could literally go on Netflix, get any given movie, and queue for Ashran. You could decide, hey, I want popcorn. You could drive to the supermarket, get some microwavable popcorn, come back, and you're still in the queue for Ashran. You can watch the entire movie. Let's say, argument's sake, Lord of the Rings. It ends. Guess what? You're still in the queue for Ashran. So then you decide, you know what? I'm going to watch Two Towers. But before I watch Two Towers, I have to go to the bathroom. You go to the bathroom, you come back, and the queue hit, and you missed it. It happens to just about everybody. True story. One of the many reasons why I never bought into the whole Warlords of Draenor hype at BlizzCon 2013 when they first announced the new X-Pack, I didn't like the fact that there was no new playable race. And not for the reasons you may think. During MOP, the Horde won about 65% of the BEGs, but they endured 8 to 10 minute queue times. The Alliance won about 35% of their BGs, but they had instant queues. Now, I kind of felt that if Blizzard introduced a cool new playable race to the Alliance side, some of the hardcore, talented, dedicated Horde PvPers, because they tend, on the US servers, a lot of the talent tends to be on the Horde side in PvP, or at least it used to be, they'd be intrigued to come over to the Alliance side and give Alliance a shot. And maybe, just maybe, that would help even things out, because I'm 100% about fairness. The reason I thought that could very well work was back in Kata, a lot of the Horde players went allied to play Worgen. It wasn't that typical sissy boy Alliance race. Worgen were tough. Worgen were vicious. Worgen were pretty badass. And that appealed to a lot of the Horde players, and they thought they'd give it a try. A lot of the ranked, talented, and dedicated PvPers, they generally play Horde, and they realized or started to believe that they needed to go Alliance, get the human racial in order to be competitive. When you start to see these ranked players turn ally and go human, then guess what happens? It's a perception versus reality thing. All the tryhards and wannabes see guys with the big rankings go ally. So all the tryhards and wannabes do the same. And then the new players who don't know who to follow the tryhards and wannabes because they see those guys as ambitious. So now you get this massive flock to the Alliance and you create this imbalance. But the problem is, clearly, every man for himself. Is it the best trinket or racial in the game? Absolutely. I do believe it is. But the other ones are pretty good in situations, and that is also a problem. And the better they make the trinkets, the more valuable every man for himself. Now, Blizzard recently took that get out of bad shit trinket on the PvP side and buffed the stats by 50%, and now they're popping in this mercenary mode, so that combination might be a good 1-2 punch to fix things. But is it really going to be a long-term fix? Because the issue here is clearly every man for himself. I'm not making these facts up. According to worldofwarcraft.com, which is a website that compiles stats of the database of World of Warcraft, show it on the board, people. Best PvP player, races, and faction. Number 1, human, 43%. Number 2, night elf, 15%. By the way, look at how many people play Panda. Less than 1%. There's a reason for that. This is astounding. This is like a horse with a full mile lead on the rest of the pack. And this is clearly 100% the problem. So let's talk about the big fat elephant in the room, the purple elephant eating popcorn. Every man for himself. Is it the best racial in the game? And the answer is a very affirmative, definitive maybe. I've never understood this whole big DPS is best in WoW. I never understood it. Whether you're talking PvP or PvE, I don't understand it. Because the way I see it, it's about the opportunity that you create to do damage. What good is having the best gear in arena, even if you're up against undergeared players and they keep you consistently CC'd and out of the game? It's about strategy, it's about negating the other team's opportunities and maximizing yours. Not always about damage. To back my point, I'm going to give you an example from history. Back at the end of World War I, the French were very concerned about the Germans getting aggressive and invading their country again. Their plan, build a defense system. And that's exactly what they did. They call it the Maginot Line. It was a 200-mile-long defense system of bunkers and super-duper powered cannons that were built to deter the Germans from invading again in the future. Took many years to build, cost many dollars to build, or francs in this case. Did it work? No. History tells us obviously it didn't. The Germans took the path of least resistance. They went through Belgium. At the end of World War II, the Americans tested out the power of those cannons. And do you know that those cannons were able to take out a German Panzer tank from a considerable distance with one shot? Super damage, super power, but strategy and proper planning prevailed. Here's an example from World of Warcraft. Shadow Priests. I have two. Human, Night Elf. Put a Shadow Priest in RBGs, BGs, gear them up. They're OP. I admit it, 100% the truth. Put them in threes. Save a certain god comp. They're average at best, because they can blend in a little bit, but not quite enough. Put them in twos. They're utter garbage. I hate doing twos on my human Shadow Priest. Now I'm starting to see it as more of a challenge, but I don't like it as much as I do like it on my Night Elf. The question is, why? I love that Night Elf racial for Shadow Priest. I can come out of the gate in twos, and the two melee players on the opposing team would be like, Shadow Priest. No question. They're going to target the Shadow Priest. It's always a number one target. They'll see me. There he is. Maybe they pop their whammies. Maybe they don't, but they're coming for me. What do? Pop a feather, spectral guise, vanish, shadow meld. Where'd he go? Sometimes they end up wasting their cooldowns. Sometimes they're off their kill the Shadow Priest mode, and now it's find the Shadow Priest mode, which gives my partner an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. Does the human Shadow Priest do more damage? Yes. In twos, does the Night Elf Shadow Priest create a better situation and opportunity to do damage than the human? Yes. This is the whole problem with every man for himself. In a blanket situation in PvP, every man for himself is at the worst average. But there are other racials, like I said, that are situational and better in certain circumstances. Let me know your thoughts. Once again, this is Luxley saying, whatever it is by you guys, I don't know if it's morning, afternoon, or night when you're watching this video, but do your best to make it great. Luxley out.